Humanity had a reputation across the stars. While other species fought wars and settled disputes with weapons, humans were different. They were known as the peacekeepers of the galaxy. When Earth joined the Galactic Council, everyone expected them to be just another species looking for power. But humans surprised everyone. They didn't come with threats or demands. They came with words, patience, and understanding. For years, humans helped resolve conflicts that had lasted for centuries. Alien species that wouldn't even sit in the same room were now signing peace treaties, all because of human diplomacy. The Galactic Council, made up of representatives from hundreds of planets, admired humanity for their calm approach and clever negotiation skills. At the center of it all was Captain Laura Dean. She wasn't just a diplomat. She was Earth's best. Tall, with sharp eyes and a steady voice, Laura had a gift. She could listen to both sides of an argument, understand their fears, and find common ground. It wasn't easy, but Laura believed in the power of words. She believed that even the most stubborn leaders could be guided toward peace. Now, Laura faced her biggest challenge yet. Two powerful empires, the Zorak and the Varn, were on the brink of war. The Zorak were a proud, warrior-like species, covered in thick scales, and known for their fierce tempers. The Varn, on the other hand, were tall and thin, with glowing blue skin and sharp minds. The two species had been rivals for generations, but until now they had avoided full-scale war. That was about to change. The Zorak accused the Varn of stealing valuable resources from one of their border planets. The Varn denied it, claiming the Zorak were looking for an excuse to start a fight. Both sides were armed and ready. One wrong move, and the galaxy would be thrown into chaos. Laura was sent to mediate the crisis. She arrived at the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, a massive space station orbiting a neutral star. The hall was filled with representatives from all over the galaxy, different shapes, sizes, and colors, each species unique. But today, all eyes were on the humans. Laura took her seat at the long curved table. To her left sat the Zorak ambassador, Graktor, his scales glinting under the bright lights. To her right was the Varn diplomat, Selen, her blue skin glowing softly as she adjusted her sleek robes. Laura cleared her throat. "We are here to find a solution, not to point fingers," she began, her voice calm and steady. "War will only bring loss to both of your people. Let's talk about how we can move forward peacefully." For hours, the discussions went back and forth. Graktor slammed his fist on the table, growling about honor and justice. Selen responded with cold logic, pointing out the lack of evidence. Laura listened patiently, guiding the conversation away from anger and toward compromise. But something felt off. As the hours passed, Laura noticed a change in the atmosphere. The other council members, usually supportive and attentive during such meetings, seemed distant. They avoided eye contact with her, whispering quietly among themselves when they thought she wasn't looking. After the meeting, Laura approached Ambassador Vrix, a longtime ally from the peaceful Lauran species. He was usually warm and friendly, but today his eyes darted nervously. "Vrix," Laura said softly, "is something going on?" The ambassador hesitated, his mouth opening as if to speak, but then he closed it quickly and shook his head. "Nothing, Captain Dean. You're just imagining things." But Laura wasn't convinced. She could feel it in her gut. Something was wrong. Later that evening, as she returned to her quarters on the space station, Laura received a priority message from Earth. It was marked urgent. She tapped the screen, and the face of Commander Harris, her superior back on Earth, appeared. His usually calm expression was tight with worry. "Laura, we just received a distress signal from New Haven," he said, referring to a human colony on the far edge of the galaxy. "They're under attack." Laura's heart skipped a beat. "By who?" "We don't know," Harris replied. "The message was cut off before we could get details. But it sounded bad. We've asked the council for help. But—" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "They're refusing to send assistance." Laura felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean refusing? They're supposed to protect all member species. I know, Harris said quietly, but they're claiming it's just a pirate raid and not their responsibility. Laura knew better. She could feel it in her bones. This wasn't just a random attack. And the council's sudden coldness wasn't a coincidence. She ended the call, staring out the window at the vastness of space. The stars twinkled, distant and indifferent. For the first time, Laura felt the weight of betrayal. Humanity had spent years keeping the galaxy together, offering peace and understanding. But when humans needed help, the galaxy turned its back. As she stood there, a quiet resolve settled in her heart. Something was about to change, and the galaxy wasn't ready for it. Captain Laura Dean sat in her quarters, staring at the blank wall. The message from Commander Harris echoed in her mind. New Haven is under attack. New Haven wasn't just any colony. It was one of humanity's proudest achievements, a peaceful settlement on the edge of the galaxy, home to thousands of families, scientists, and explorers. The colony represented humanity's hope for a better future, a symbol of trust between humans and the Galactic Council. Now, that hope was in danger. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a random attack. Pirates? Maybe, but something about the Council's refusal to help felt wrong. The same council that praised humanity's diplomatic efforts was now ignoring their call for aid. Laura didn't waste time. She gathered her team and marched to the council chamber. The grand hall, usually buzzing with voices from hundreds of species, felt colder today. The alien representatives whispered among themselves, stealing glances at Laura as she entered. She took her seat at the table, her expression calm but her heart racing. When Ambassador Jorak, the leader of the council, began to speak, Laura raised her hand to interrupt. "I'm here to discuss the attack on New Haven," she said firmly. "Human lives are in danger. We need immediate assistance from the Council's defense forces." Ambassador Jorak, a tall, thin alien with gray skin and narrow eyes, folded his hands calmly. "Captain Dean, the Council has reviewed the situation. We believe this was the work of independent pirates, not a coordinated attack. Sending forces would only escalate the situation." Laura's jaw tightened. Escalate. Innocent people are dying. The Council exists to protect its members, and humanity is a member. Jorak sighed, as if Laura was being unreasonable. "We advise patience, Captain. This is a local matter. Humanity should handle it without involving the entire Council." The words felt like a slap in the face. After everything humanity had done for the galaxy, mediating peace treaties, resolving conflicts, and maintaining stability, they were being told to handle it alone. Laura's eyes swept across the room, hoping to find support. But the other ambassadors avoided her gaze. Even Ambassador Vrix from the peaceful Lauran species, who had always been an ally, kept his eyes down. It was clear. Humanity was on its own. Laura stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "If that's the Council's decision," she said quietly, "then we will act accordingly." Without another word, she turned and left the chamber. Back on Earth, the news of the Council's refusal spread quickly. The leaders of Earth's united government were furious. President Marlowe, a calm and thoughtful leader, addressed the world from the capital. His face, usually composed, was hard with determination. "For years, humanity has been the galaxy's voice of reason," he said. "We have worked tirelessly to build bridges between species, to bring peace to the stars. But today, when we needed the same support, the Galactic Council turned its back on us." The message was clear. Humanity would no longer rely on the Council. Earth's military forces were mobilized. The Starship Endeavour, one of humanity's most advanced ships, was sent to New Haven with a fleet of support vessels. They moved quickly and quietly, avoiding the usual Council channels. Laura, now back on Earth, watched from the command center as the fleet approached New Haven. The live feed from the lead ship showed a horrifying sight. The colony was in ruins. Buildings were reduced to rubble, fires burned across the landscape, and smoke filled the sky. But what shocked Laura the most wasn't just the destruction. It was the symbols left behind. The attackers hadn't been pirates. The markings were clear. They belonged to the Zorak Empire. The same Zorak who sat in the council chambers, pretending to seek peace. Laura's hands clenched into fists. The betrayal was deeper than she had thought. Not only had the council refused to help, but they had also known who was behind the attack. And they had done nothing. The survivors of New Haven were brought back to Earth. Their stories confirmed Laura's worst fears. The attack had been sudden and brutal. The Zorak ships arrived without warning, targeting communication towers first to cut off any calls for help. The colony's small defense force had been overwhelmed in minutes. But what haunted Laura the most were the words of Anna Greer, a young scientist who had barely escaped. They knew, Anna whispered, her eyes wide with fear. The Zorak, they said the council wouldn't interfere. They said humanity was alone. Laura felt a cold weight settle in her chest. The Galactic Council, the same body that humanity had trusted for years, had allowed this to happen. Back at the United Government headquarters, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss their next move. The room was filled with tension, but there was no debate about what needed to be done. Humanity would not stay silent. President Marlowe stood before his advisors, his voice steady. The Council has made its choice. Now we'll make ours. Within hours, Earth's representatives were recalled from every council post across the galaxy. Diplomats, scientists, and ambassadors boarded ships and returned home. Humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council without a single word of explanation. There were no threats, no ultimatums, just silence. The galaxy was left stunned. Species that had relied on human mediation were suddenly without guidance. Trade agreements began to falter, and tensions between old rivals started to rise. But humanity didn't look back. Laura watched as Earth's fleet returned, stronger and more united than ever. They had learned a painful lesson. In the vastness of space, trust was fragile. And when that trust was broken, humanity knew exactly how to respond. Not with war, but with silence. A silence louder than any battle cry. The Galactic Council was in chaos. For centuries, the Council Chamber had been the heart of interstellar diplomacy. Species from across the galaxy gathered there to debate, negotiate, and maintain peace. But now, a strange emptiness settled over the room. The human seats were vacant. At first, the other council members thought it was temporary. Surely, humanity wouldn't leave without a fight. After all, they were the galaxy's peacekeepers. The council expected angry speeches, threats of retaliation, or at least a formal complaint. But none of that came. Humanity was simply gone. Ambassador Jorak, the council leader, paced the grand hall. His gray skin darkened with frustration. "They'll be back," he muttered to himself. Humans can't survive without the council's support. But deep down, even Jorak wasn't sure. Back on Earth, the mood was different. There was no panic, no fear, just quiet determination. Humanity had finally seen the truth. The galaxy didn't value their diplomacy. The council had betrayed them, and humanity wasn't going to beg for forgiveness. Instead, Earth focused inward. The United Government redirected its resources. Diplomatic missions were shut down, and the money once spent on peace talks was funneled into technological development, defense, and exploration. Scientists who once worked on interspecies projects now focused on advancing Earth's own technologies. Captain Laura Dean watched the changes unfold from her office at the United Government headquarters. The halls, once filled with diplomats preparing for council meetings, were now bustling with engineers and military strategists. Laura had always believed in diplomacy, but now she saw the strength in humanity's silence. They didn't need to shout to make their presence felt. Their absence was enough. Months passed. At first, the galaxy carried on as if nothing had changed. The Zorak and Varn continued their tense negotiations, believing they could handle their issues without human interference. Other species tried to mediate, but it wasn't the same. Humans had a unique way of understanding different cultures, of finding common ground where none seemed to exist. Without humanity's guidance, old grudges began to resurface. Small disputes between species, once easily resolved by human diplomats, grew into larger conflicts. Trade routes that humans had helped secure became unsafe as pirate attacks increased. The galaxy's fragile peace was beginning to crack. Still, the Council refused to admit the problem. They believed they could manage without humanity, but beneath their confidence was a growing fear. One day, a transmission arrived at Earth. It was from Ambassador Vrix, the representative from the peaceful Lauren species. He had always been one of humanity's closest allies, but even he had stayed silent during the Council's betrayal. The message was brief. "We need your help. The Zorak-Varn conflict has escalated. Innocent lives are at risk. Please, return to the Council." Laura read the message carefully. She remembered Vrix's silence when she had asked for support. The same silence that had echoed through the Council chamber when New Haven was under attack. She forwarded the message to President Marlowe, but she already knew the answer. Earth didn't reply. The Zorak-Varn conflict soon spiraled out of control. What started as a border dispute turned into full-scale war. Their battles spread beyond their own territories, affecting nearby planets and neutral species. The Galactic Council tried to intervene, but their efforts were weak and disorganized. Without humanity's leadership, the Council struggled to find common ground between the warring empires. Other species began to feel the impact. Trade networks collapsed, economies suffered, and once safe planets became battlegrounds. The Council's influence weakened, and the galaxy descended into chaos. Throughout it all, humanity remained silent. While the galaxy struggled, Earth thrived. Freed from the burden of galactic politics, humanity advanced rapidly. New technologies were developed, from faster-than-light travel improvements to powerful defense systems. Earth's military grew stronger, not for conquest, but for protection. They had learned from New Haven that trust in others was fragile. But it wasn't just about defense. Humanity also focused on exploration. New star systems were discovered, far beyond the reach of the Galactic Council. Colonies were established on distant planets, each one carefully protected and independent from alien influence. Humanity was no longer just a member of the galaxy. They were becoming something greater. Captain Laura Dean saw this transformation firsthand. She had once believed that humanity's role was to keep the galaxy together. But now she realized that humanity didn't need to fix the galaxy's problems. They only needed to take care of their own. Back in the Council chamber, panic was growing. Ambassador Jorek called emergency meetings, but they always ended the same way: arguments, finger-pointing, and no solutions. The Zorak and Varn ignored the Council's pleas for peace, continuing their war with no end in sight. Desperate, the Council sent another message to Earth. This time, it wasn't just Vrix. Multiple species signed the plea, begging humanity to return and restore balance. Again, Earth didn't respond. The silence was deafening. As the months turned into a year, the galaxy began to understand. Humanity hadn't just left the Council, they had taken something vital with them. The peace, the stability, the delicate balance between species, all of it had depended on humans more than anyone realized. And now, with humanity gone, the galaxy was falling apart. But Earth wasn't watching with anger or revenge. They weren't preparing to attack or demand repayment. They didn't need to. Their absence was enough to leave the galaxy speechless. Captain Laura Dean stood at the observation deck of Earth's newest starship, the Solara. The stars stretched endlessly before her, each one a reminder of humanity's new future. They didn't abandon diplomacy out of weakness. They'd walked away because they finally understood their worth. And sometimes, the loudest message isn't spoken. It's the silence that remains. The Galactic Council was falling apart. What once was a strong alliance of hundreds of species was now little more than a collection of arguing voices. The great hall that had echoed with human wisdom now echoed with anger and blame. The Zorak and Varn War had spread like wildfire, pulling more species into the conflict. Neighboring planets were caught in the crossfire. Trade routes collapsed, and once thriving colonies turned into battlegrounds. The Council sent diplomats, but without humanity's steady hand, no one could find common ground. Ambassador Jorak, the leader of the Council, stood in the middle of the Grand Hall, his gray skin pale with frustration. The other ambassadors shouted over one another, desperate for solutions no one could find. "They won't come back," Ambassador Vrix whispered, his soft voice barely audible over the noise. His usually calm, blue eyes were filled with regret. Jorak shot him a sharp look. "They have to," he hissed. "Without them, the Council will crumble." But deep down, even Jorak knew the truth. Humanity wasn't coming back, and the galaxy was paying the price. On Earth, the atmosphere was completely different. While the galaxy struggled, humanity thrived. Their silence wasn't out of anger. It was a quiet realization of their own strength. The resources once spent on interstellar politics were now focused on building a better future for themselves. Captain Laura Dean walked through the bustling halls of the United Government headquarters. Engineers, scientists, and military strategists moved with purpose. Plans for new colonies, advanced chips, and powerful defense systems were coming to life. Laura paused at a large window overlooking the space docks. Dozens of sleek starships, far more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen, floated like silent guardians above Earth. The most impressive of them all was the Solara, Earth's newest exploration vessel. It was faster, stronger, and more advanced than any ship humanity had ever built. But it wasn't designed for war. It was built to explore new frontiers, far from the Galactic Council's reach. Laura's thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. A message had arrived. She tapped the screen and saw President Marlowe's calm face appear. His voice, steady as always, held a quiet confidence. "The Council has sent another request," he said. "They're begging for our return. What's your recommendation, Captain?" Laura didn't hesitate. "We stay silent." Marlowe nodded, as if he had expected that answer. "I agree. Let them learn." The message ended, and Laura returned her gaze to the stars. Humanity didn't need the Council, but maybe the Council needed humanity to realize how much they had lost. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, Earth's new colonies flourished. One of the most successful was Nova Terra, a planet rich in resources and beauty. The colony wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Scientists discovered new technologies, farmers grew crops in alien soils, and families built new homes under twin suns. But Nova Terra wasn't just a symbol of humanity's success, it was a message. Protected by Earth's powerful fleet, the colony stood as proof that humanity didn't need the Galactic Council's approval. They could survive, and even thrive, on their own terms. Commander Alex Hayes, the leader of Nova Terra's defense, stood at the edge of the colony, watching the twin suns set. The sky glowed in shades of orange and purple, reflecting off the sleek defense towers surrounding the settlement. Alex had once served as a peacekeeper in the Council's outer colonies. He had believed in diplomacy, just like Captain Laura Dean. But after the betrayal at New Haven, his view had changed. Now his loyalty was to humanity alone. Back in the Galactic Council, the situation grew worse. The Zorak and Varn War showed no signs of stopping. Entire planets were being destroyed, and the Council's influence weakened with each passing day. Species that had once depended on human mediation found themselves lost in endless disputes. Desperate, the Council sent a delegation directly to Earth. It was a risky move, but they had no other options. When the Council's ships arrived in Earth's orbit, they were met by an impressive sight. The Solara and its fleet stood like silent sentinels, their sleek designs a clear sign of humanity's advancements. The Council delegation sent a formal request to meet with Earth's leaders, but no response came. They waited and waited, but Earth remained silent. Inside Earth's command center, Captain Laura Dean watched the Council's ships hover in orbit. She could see their desperate messages, their pleas for negotiation. But humanity had made its choice. They still don't understand, Commander Harris said quietly, standing beside Laura. Laura nodded. They will. As days turned into weeks, the council delegation finally gave up. They returned to the council, their failure clear. The message was undeniable. Humanity had moved on. But something unexpected began to happen. Species across the galaxy, watching Earth's quiet strength, started to rethink their own alliances. Some smaller species, tired of the Council's weakness, reached out to humanity, not with demands, but with respect. They didn't ask for help in solving their problems. They wanted to learn from humanity's independence. Earth didn't respond to every message, but when they did, it was on their terms. They chose who to engage with, carefully selecting allies who shared their values of trust and mutual respect. The galaxy began to shift. The Council, once the center of power, was now just a shadow of its former self. And humanity, in their silence, had become something greater. Not just peacekeepers, but leaders of a new era. Captain Laura Dean stood aboard the Solara, staring out at the stars. Humanity's journey was far from over, but they no longer needed the Council's approval to find their place in the galaxy. They had discovered something far more powerful than diplomacy: self-reliance. And in the quiet void of space, that lesson echoed louder than any words ever could. The Galactic Council was no longer the powerful force it once claimed to be. The grand chamber that had echoed with diplomatic debates and agreements now stood as a hollow reminder of what was lost. The Zorak-Varn War had torn through the galaxy, and without humanity's influence, the Council struggled to hold anything together. Meanwhile, Earth thrived. Far from the chaos, humanity had become stronger, more advanced, and more united than ever. Their silence wasn't just a refusal to speak, it was a statement of power. While the Council tried and failed to restore order, humanity focused on building a future that didn't rely on anyone else. But the galaxy was watching. In the heart of the United Government headquarters, Captain Laura Dean reviewed reports from Earth's newest colonies. The latest updates from Nova Terra were promising. The colony had become a symbol of human resilience, growing into a bustling hub of technology and culture. But there was more. Smaller species across the galaxy, tired of the Council's failures, had started reaching out to humanity. They didn't come with demands or requests for help. They came with respect, seeking alliances based on mutual trust. Laura scrolled through the latest message from the Fiddler, a peaceful species known for their scientific achievements. Their request was simple: a partnership, not for protection, but for shared knowledge and exploration. President Marlowe entered the room, his calm presence filling the space. "Another alliance proposal?" he asked, glancing at the screen. Laura nodded. "They're not the first. The Council is losing its grip, and others are looking to us for leadership." Marlowe studied the message, his expression thoughtful. "We choose carefully. We don't need to rebuild the Council. We need something better." Laura agreed. Humanity's strength came from knowing their worth, and they wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. While Earth expanded its influence, the Galactic Council continued to crumble. Ambassador Jorak sat in the dimly lit council chamber, his frustration growing with each passing day. The once powerful alliance was now just a collection of desperate voices. "The humans must return," Jorak muttered, pacing the room. "Without them, we are nothing." But Ambassador Vrix, who had once been humanity's closest ally, shook his head. "They won't come back, Jorak. They've moved beyond us." Jorak slammed his fist against the table. "Then we'll force them to return. If they won't listen to diplomacy, perhaps they'll respond to pressure." It was a dangerous idea, but Jorak was desperate. The Council's plan was simple: target one of Earth's new colonies to draw them back into the fold. They believed humanity wouldn't ignore an attack on their people. But they underestimated how much humanity had changed. Nova Terra, Earth's shining colony, was peaceful and thriving. Families built homes under the twin suns, Children played in the fields, and scientists worked on groundbreaking technologies. But above all, Nova Terra was protected. Commander Alex Hayes, leader of the colony's defense, received the alert first. Unidentified ships had entered their space. They weren't pirates or rogue attackers. They were Council ships. Alex narrowed his eyes. He had served in the Council once, believed in their mission. But after New Haven, he knew better. "Prepare defenses," he ordered calmly. The Council ships sent a message, demanding a meeting. They claimed they only wanted to talk, but Alex knew better. "They think we'll panic," he said to his second-in-command, Lena. "They think we'll beg for help." But humanity had learned its lesson. The Council ships hovered above Nova Terra, waiting for a response, but none came. Instead, Earth's fleet arrived. Sleek, powerful ships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Council vessels. The difference was clear. Earth's technology had far surpassed anything the Council had. The Council ships sent another message, this time with a thinly veiled threat. But Earth's response was silence. And then, the Council ships were quietly escorted out of Nova Terra's space without a single shot fired. The message was clear. Humanity didn't fear the Council. When news of the failed attempt reached the Galactic Council, panic spread. They had hoped to force humanity's hand. But instead, they were left humiliated. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy took notice. Species that had once relied on the Council now saw humanity as the true leaders of the galaxy. They admired humanity's quiet strength, their refusal to be drawn into petty conflicts. One by one, more species reached out to Earth, not out of desperation, but out of respect. They saw in humanity a new way forward, a chance to build something better than the broken Council. And Earth chose carefully. They formed alliances with species that shared their values of trust and independence. Together, they began to create a new network, not based on politics, but on mutual respect and cooperation. Captain Laura Dean stood aboard the Solara, watching as Earth's new allies gathered in orbit for the first meeting of this new alliance. The ships from different species hovered together, a symbol of what the galaxy could become when built on trust, not control. Laura felt a sense of pride. Humanity had walked away from the Council, not out of weakness, but out of strength. And now, they were leading the galaxy into a new era, not with words, but with actions. As the ships gathered, President Marlowe's voice echoed through the communication channel. "We left the Council because we knew our worth," he said. "And now, together with our allies, we will build something better. A galaxy where trust is earned, not demanded. A future where silence speaks louder than threats." The message resonated across the stars. The Galactic Council was left speechless. But humanity's silence had already said everything. The Galactic Council was no longer the powerful force it once claimed to be. The Grand Chamber that had echoed with diplomatic debates and agreements now stood as a hollow reminder of what was lost. The Zorak-Varn War had torn through the galaxy, and without humanity's influence, the Council struggled to hold anything together. Meanwhile, Earth thrived. Far from the chaos, humanity had become stronger, more advanced, and more united than ever. Their silence wasn't just a refusal to speak, it was a statement of power. While the Council tried and failed to restore order, humanity focused on building a future that didn't rely on anyone else. But the galaxy was watching. In the heart of the United Government headquarters, Captain Laura Dean reviewed reports from Earth's newest colonies. The latest updates from Nova Terra were promising. The colony had become a symbol of human resilience, growing into a bustling hub of technology and culture. But there was more. Smaller species across the galaxy, tired of the Council's failures, had started reaching out to humanity. They didn't come with demands or requests for help. They came with respect, seeking alliances based on mutual trust. Laura scrolled through the latest message from the Thaler, a peaceful species known for their scientific achievements. Their request was simple: a partnership, not for protection, but for shared knowledge and exploration. President Marlowe entered the room, his calm presence filling the space. "Another alliance proposal?" he asked, glancing at the screen. Laura nodded. "They're not the first. The Council is losing its grip, and others are looking to us for leadership." Marlowe studied the message, his expression thoughtful. "We choose carefully. We don't need to rebuild the Council. We need something better." Laura agreed. Humanity's strength came from knowing their worth, and they wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. While Earth expanded its influence, the Galactic Council continued to crumble. Ambassador Jorek sat in the dimly lit council chamber, his frustration growing with each passing day. The once powerful alliance was now just a collection of desperate voices. "The humans must return," Jorek muttered, pacing the room. "Without them, we are nothing." But Ambassador Vrix, who had once been humanity's closest ally, shook his head. "They won't come back, Jorek. They've moved beyond us." Jorek slammed his fist against the table. "Then we'll force them to return. If they won't listen to diplomacy, perhaps they'll respond to pressure." It was a dangerous idea, but Jorek was desperate. The Council's plan was simple: target one of Earth's new colonies to draw them back into the fold. They believed humanity wouldn't ignore an attack on their people. But they underestimated how much humanity had changed. Nova Terra, Earth's shining colony, was peaceful and thriving. Families built homes under the twin suns, children played in the fields, and scientists worked on groundbreaking technologies. But above all, Nova Terra was protected. Commander Alex Hayes, leader of the colony's defense, received the alert first. Unidentified ships had entered their space. They weren't pirates or rogue attackers. They were Council ships. Alex narrowed his eyes. He had served in the Council once, believed in their mission. But after New Haven, he knew better. "Prepare defenses," he ordered calmly. The Council ships sent a message, demanding a meeting. They claimed they only wanted to talk. But Alex knew better. "They think we'll panic," he said to his second-in-command, Lena. "They think we'll beg for help." But humanity had learned its lesson. The Council ships hovered above Nova Terra, waiting for a response. But none came. Instead, Earth's fleet arrived. Sleek, powerful ships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Council vessels. The difference was clear. Earth's technology had far surpassed anything the Council had. The Council ships sent another message, this time with a thinly veiled threat. But Earth's response was silence. And then, the Council ships were quietly escorted out of Nova Terra's space without a single shot fired. The message was clear. Humanity didn't fear the Council. When news of the failed attempt reached the Galactic Council, panic spread. They had hoped to force humanity's hand. But instead, they were left humiliated. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy took notice. Species that had once relied on the Council now saw humanity as the true leaders of the galaxy. They admired humanity's quiet strength, their refusal to be drawn into petty conflicts. One by one, more species reached out to Earth, not out of desperation, but out of respect. They saw in humanity a new way forward, a chance to build something better than the broken Council. And Earth chose carefully. They formed alliances with species that shared their values of trust and independence. Together, they began to create a new network, not based on politics, but on mutual respect and cooperation. Captain Laura Dean stood aboard the Solara, watching as Earth's new allies gathered in orbit for the first meeting of this new alliance. The ships from different species hovered together, a symbol of what the galaxy could become when built on trust, not control. Laura felt a sense of pride. Humanity had walked away from the Council, not out of weakness, but out of strength. And now, they were leading the galaxy into a new era, not with words, but with actions. As the ships gathered, President Marlowe's voice echoed through the communication channel. "We left the Council because we knew our worth," he said. "And now, together with our allies, we will build something better. A galaxy where trust is earned, not demanded. A future where silence speaks louder than threats." The message resonated across the stars. The Galactic Council was left speechless, but humanity's silence had already said everything. The galaxy had changed. The Galactic Council, once the symbol of unity and peace, was now struggling to stay relevant. Their halls, once filled with confident voices and diplomatic debates, echoed with uncertainty. The Zorak-Varn War raged on, pulling more species into its destructive path. The Council's influence had weakened, and their last desperate attempt to force humanity back into their fold had failed. But humanity, they were thriving. On Earth, Captain Laura Dean stood aboard the Solara, watching the stars stretch endlessly before her. The galaxy was vast, filled with possibilities, and humanity had embraced its new role as silent leaders. They no longer needed the Council's approval or support. Their actions spoke louder than any diplomatic speech ever could. Earth had built new alliances, but not with the Council. These were partnerships based on respect and shared goals. Species like the Thedler, Karnas, and Valora had joined Earth's growing network, bringing their unique strengths and knowledge. Together, they were building a new order in the galaxy, one that valued trust over politics. Laura reviewed the latest reports from Novaterra and other colonies. Each one showed progress, innovation, and stability. Humanity's silence had become their strongest message, and the galaxy had finally started to listen. But the Galactic Council wasn't done trying. Back in the council chambers, Ambassador Jorak was furious. "They've humiliated us," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. His gray skin darkened with anger, and his voice echoed through the nearly empty hall. Many species had already abandoned the council, turning to humanity for leadership. Ambassador Vrix, once humanity's closest ally, sat quietly. He had warned Jorak that forcing humanity's hand would backfire, but no one had listened. Now, the council was weaker than ever. Jorak's frustration boiled over. "If they won't return willingly, we'll give them no choice." Vrix frowned. "You've already tried. They don't respond to threats." But Jorak wasn't thinking about threats. He was thinking about something worse. A few weeks later, Earth received a transmission. It wasn't from the Council, but from Novaterra. The message was brief and urgent. "Unknown ships detected near our outer perimeter. They're not responding to hails, requesting immediate support." Commander Alex Hayes stood in the colony's command center, his eyes fixed on the screen. The ships were unlike anything they'd seen before. Not Council, not Zorak, not Varn. Their movements were strange, almost experimental. Alex didn't waste time. "Activate defense systems. Alert Earth." Within minutes, Earth's fleet, led by the Solara, was en route to Novaterra. But something felt off. Captain Laura Dean reviewed the incoming data as the Solaris sped through hyperspace. The unidentified ships weren't attacking. They were just observing. But why? Laura's gut told her this wasn't a random event. And she was right. When the Solara arrived at Novaterra, the strange ships had already vanished. No trace of them remained. It was as if they had never been there. But Alex knew better. "They wanted us to see them," he said, standing beside Laura in the colony's command center. This was a message. Laura nodded. But what was the message? Back on Earth, President Marlowe analyzed the situation with his top advisors. The strange appearance near Novaterra wasn't a coincidence. It felt like a test. "They're trying to provoke us," Marlowe said. "But not in the usual way. This isn't the Council's style." Laura, patched in from the Solara, agreed. "It's too subtle. The Council would have sent a formal message or tried to negotiate. This feels different." It wasn't long before they found out why. A week later, another colony, Horizon's Edge, reported the same thing. Strange ships, no attacks, just silent observation. Then another colony, and another. It became clear that this wasn't random. Someone, or something, was watching humanity's expansion carefully. And it wasn't the Council. As humanity tried to make sense of these silent observers, The Galactic Council faced their own crisis. Jorik's plan had failed, but the Council's desperation had attracted attention from the wrong kind of force. A shadowy group of rogue species, fed up with the Council's weakness and humanity's growing power, had formed a coalition. Their goal wasn't peace or diplomacy, it was control. They believed the galaxy had become too chaotic and needed a strong hand to guide it. Humanity's independence was seen as a threat to their plans, and they were prepared to do whatever it took to bring humanity down. Back on Earth, Laura and Marlowe finally uncovered the truth. The strange ships weren't just observing. They were gathering data, mapping humanity's colonies and studying their defenses. This wasn't about diplomacy or war. It was about control. Humanity had a choice. They could respond with force, sending a clear message that they wouldn't be intimidated. Or they could continue their silence, refusing to be drawn into another galactic conflict. But Captain Laura Dean knew this was different. "This isn't just about us," she said, standing aboard the Solara. "If we ignore this, it's not just humanity that will suffer. Our allies, our colonies, everything we've built. It's all at risk." President Marlowe agreed. "But we won't play by their rules. We'll set our own." Humanity wouldn't return to the Council. They wouldn't beg for peace or threaten war. They would act. In the weeks that followed, Earth strengthened its alliances. The Theller, Karnas, and Valora stood with humanity, ready to defend their shared future. Together, they formed a united front, not just to protect themselves, but to show the galaxy that cooperation, not control, was the true path forward. The Rogue Coalition didn't expect this. They thought humanity would either submit or stand alone, but humanity's silence had taught them a powerful lesson. True strength doesn't come from words, it comes from unity. And humanity was more united than ever. Captain Laura Dean looked out at the stars from the Solara's bridge. The galaxy was watching, waiting for humanity's next move. But this time, they wouldn't be left speechless. They would hear humanity's answer in the actions that followed. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Galactic Council, once the heart of interstellar diplomacy, was now a shadow of its former self. Their influence had crumbled, and their desperate attempts to force humanity back into the fold had failed. Meanwhile, a rogue coalition of species, seeing humanity's independence as a threat, moved silently in the background, plotting to regain control over the galaxy's future. But humanity was ready. Aboard the Solara, Captain Laura Dean stood at the center of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the star map glowing before her. Dozens of red markers pulsed on the screen. Rogue coalition ships moving through sectors near Earth's colonies. But humanity was no longer isolated. The Theller, Karnas, and Valora fleets stood side by side with Earth's, their ships forming a defensive line around human territories. This wasn't just humanity's fight. It was a stand for a new future, one built on trust and unity, not fear and control. "Status?" Laura asked, her voice calm but firm. Commander Harris responded immediately. "All Allied fleets are in position. The coalition ships are holding, but they haven't made a move yet." Laura nodded. She knew the coalition was waiting for humanity to act first, hoping to provoke a response that would justify an attack. But humanity had learned from its past mistakes. They wouldn't be dragged into a fight on someone else's terms. On Earth, President Marlowe watched the situation unfold from the United Government headquarters. The Council's silence was telling. They were powerless, watching from the sidelines as the galaxy shifted around them. But Marlowe wasn't focused on the Council. His attention was on the Rogue Coalition. "They want us to fire first," Marlowe said to his advisors, "but we won't give them that satisfaction." Instead, humanity prepared a different kind of response, one that would leave the galaxy speechless once again. The coalition made their move 3 days later. A fleet of their ships entered Nova Terra's space, just as they had done weeks before. But this time, they didn't just observe. They sent a clear message: surrender or face the consequences. Commander Alex Hayes received the transmission with a steady hand. He had expected this. The colony's defenses were already active, and Earth's fleet was on standby. But Alex didn't respond to the threat. Instead, he sent a simple message back. We are not alone. Minutes later, the Solara and the combined fleets of Earth's allies emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Coalition ships in a silent, powerful display of unity. The Coalition hadn't expected this. They thought humanity would stand alone. But now, faced with an alliance stronger than anything the galaxy had seen, they hesitated. Aboard the Solara, Laura opened a channel to the Coalition fleet. Her face appeared on their screens, calm and composed. You came here expecting fear, she said. You thought we would fold under pressure. But you've misunderstood humanity from the start. Her words echoed across the fleets. We don't seek control. We don't seek conflict. But we will protect what we've built, with or without diplomacy. The Coalition ships remained silent. They hadn't expected this level of resistance, especially not from a united front of multiple species. You have a choice, Laura continued. Leave now, and we will not pursue you. Stay, and you'll see what humanity and its allies are capable of. The Coalition fleet wavered. Their leaders had underestimated humanity's resolve and the strength of their alliances. One by one, the ships began to retreat, slipping back into hyperspace without a single shot fired. The battle had been won without violence. News of the Coalition's retreat spread quickly across the galaxy. Species that had once doubted humanity now saw them in a new light, not as aggressors, but as leaders who commanded respect through unity and strength, not fear. Even within the remnants of the Galactic Council, whispers of admiration grew. They had tried to force humanity back with threats and manipulation, but humanity had shown the galaxy a different path. A path where silence wasn't weakness, but power. Back on Earth, President Marlowe addressed the galaxy in a rare broadcast. His words were simple, but they resonated across the stars. Humanity has no interest in controlling others. We stand for cooperation, respect, and the right to choose our own future. We have found strength not in isolation, but in the alliances we've built with those who share our vision. We will protect that future, not with empty words, but with action when needed. The message wasn't just for the Rogue Coalition or the Council. It was for every species in the galaxy watching humanity's rise. And they were listening. In the following months, more species reached out to Earth and its allies, seeking to join this new coalition based on mutual respect. The Theddler, Karnas, and Valora continued to strengthen their bonds with humanity, sharing knowledge, technology, and culture. Nova Terra became the symbol of this new era, a thriving colony where humans and aliens lived and worked side by side, proving that unity was possible even in a galaxy that once seemed destined for conflict. Captain Laura Dean and the Solara continued their missions, exploring new frontiers, not as representatives of a single species, but as part of a greater alliance that stood for something bigger than any one race. And through it all, the Galactic Council faded into the background, a relic of a time when diplomacy was used as a tool for control rather than understanding. Years later, in the quiet halls of Earth's united government, a young student asked President Marlowe a simple question during a public forum. Why did humanity leave the Galactic Council? Marlowe smiled, his eyes reflecting the countless stars humanity had touched since that day. Because we realized we didn't need to shout to be heard, he answered. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. The galaxy had learned that lesson well, and humanity had left it speechless.